Sacred Heart is proud to sponsor Pensacola Histories in recognition of the Daughters of Charity who brought their mission of care to Pensacola over 90 years ago.
Hello and welcome to our continuing story of Pensacola, North America's first place city. And in this series of episodes, we've been talking about the care and compassion elements that have made up our society here in Escambia County in Pensacola for over 190 years. We have been a compassionate area, of compassionate people, and one by one, as possibilities emerged, we have moved into create new societies, new activities, new agencies which have helped people. In our past episodes, we've talked about all sorts of things, anywhere from the Association for Retarded Children to the Cerebral Palsy Program, the work of the various civic clubs as they founded clinics. We've talked about the emergence of hospitals. We talked about the Pearl Egan Home, which was the beginning of our Children's Home Society. One thing we may have omitted before to talk about, in 1948, for example, the physicians of the community and a number of others came together to create our local blood bank, which was a private organization with full support from the Navy and the Salvation Army and some of the others who lended a lot of volunteer support. So we've had all sorts of wonderful things developing decade by decade, and as we move into the 1970s, some new needs begin to arise. Now, it's difficult to put a finger on exactly why some of these things began to plague us. But some people say, well, it was a result of the Vietnam War, and that may be. But beginning in the early 1970s, our local agencies, our law enforcement agencies and others began to find a strong traffic in drugs and alcoholism. We began to find all sorts of things that were affecting young people, and then of course as people developed bad habits, this of course led to crime and violence, so that throughout the last 40 years, alcoholism, drug abuse, and this sort of thing have begun a problem, and as a result, we have responded through various agencies that have tried to help people overcome this. The Drug and Alcohol Abuse Center here in Pensacola was one. The Community Mental Health Center has done a wonderful job in counseling on this. The Waterfront Rescue Mission and people like that do wonderful work in helping people try to break such habits. So does the Salvation Army. All of these people are trying to help others overcome problems. And I wish I could tell you in this episode that we have overcome all of this scourge for our community. That would not be true, because unfortunately, as of the day we make this broadcast here, we have in our county jail approximately 1,100 prisoners. And over 80% of those who are there because of some drug-related crime or violence. And so those problems are still with us. And while we've had a reaction to try and solve them or end them, those results are still very incomplete. Now, along with it, we began to develop another kind of abuse that I suppose has been with us always. And that was what we call physical abuse within the family. This became pretty much apparent in the late 70s and early 80s, when more and more women were being found to have been beaten or otherwise abused. And from this, a group of people came together, gained funding, gained some assistance from one of the hospitals for property, and they created what became known and is known today as Favor House. And Favor House is a sanctum for people who have been abused. They do all sorts of wonderful things to help the people, the counseling and other assistance, and it has been a wonderful addition to our community. About the same time, we began to see in our community here another element being created, and this was part of a national movement. It was stemmed out of the South, and this was an effort to help people who have very limited means to own their own home. And this, of course, is called Habitat for Humanity. Pensacola got its chapter of this back well over 30 years ago. Mrs. Salter, Betty Salter, has been the head of this for many years, and we in this area, this county, can be very proud of the fact that we have had one of the largest percentages of homes built per community at any place in the United States. And they are beautiful little houses, and they are meeting a great need. And of course, they are continually supported by individual gifts and also supported through the United Way. About the same time, we began to see in our community a need for another type of service. Now, as we grow older, as people become more susceptible to the diseases of aging and who obviously have come upon a time when they are in terminal illness, the question of where do we give care to such people? They could not be kept in hospitals. Nursing homes were not appropriate. And so it was from this that we began the local chapter of what is now called Covenant Hospice. And Covenant Hospice is a huge organization. People don't realize how many people they assist. My last figure that I had on this was almost 800 people on an average day are being helped in the area covered by this organization. Once again, assisted by the United Way and of course, by many private contributions. About the same time, of course, we began to have other agencies spring out of the ground, just as they had for diabetes and cancer and heart and so forth. And these were to meet special needs. One of these was speech and hearing, because more and more people began to have troubles of that kind. Some of them were birth-related, some were not, but we have developed across the community a lot of very fine professional people who do hearing testing, give assistance to people who need this, and of course the sight programs. We recognize that all across our community there are more and more opportunities for sight care, for everything from just simple replacement or examinations and glasses to such things as cataract removal and things of that kind, where people in our professional service do a wonderful, wonderful job. In this community, we've also begun to work in large measure toward overcoming a problem that should not be here at all, but that is literacy or illiteracy. We have a surprising number of people within Escambia County who cannot read at all or who read poorly. And of course, if you cannot read, you are very limited in what you can do as a profession. You're very limited in what you can do on the workplace. And as a result of this, many clubs, organizations, and others are assisting the school system in trying to put together programs to help such people, and also to encourage young people when they are very young, if they have any problems in learning, to get them the assistance they need in the lower grades. Another organization that came in being a little over 25 years ago, which is associated largely with the Sacred Heart Children's Hospital, and that is called Ronald McDonald House. Now, Ronald McDonald House is a home away from home for the parents of children who are hospitalized at Children's Hospital. One would say, well, you don't need very much to do that. There can't be that many of them. Well, in 2010, the work was just being completed on a new version of Ronald McDonald House. Cost about $5 million to put it together, but it has space for over 60 families who are here simultaneously witnessing the care of their children. It's a wonderful haven for them because they are given the opportunity to be right close to their children and given the kind of help that they need it when they need it most. And of course, this once again is something that has been associated first of all with personal giving, and of course has helped a lot through the McDonald chain of restaurants. Another organization that has been part of our community all along, and it still deserves every bit of credit that it can have in the care and compassion area. It has been a part of United Way, United Fund on and off here, and it is of course Scouting. Boy and Girl Scouting is going through well. In 2010, Boy Scouting was celebrating its centennial. And there are literally thousands and thousands of boys and girls throughout our area here who are so pleased that they had much early training from their very young years on up through their teens in all sorts of wonderful wood care, wood lore facilities and subjects. As we move into what we're now calling the green era, where we're much more concerned about environment, Scouting is one area where young people get a wonderful backing, an understanding what this is all about from the very young years, and so Scouting continues to hold a warm place in the hearts of many people. Another organization that is relatively new that people know little about is a special clinic that was organized just a few years ago, associated with the St. Joseph's Catholic Church on West Government Street. It is a free clinic. And it's a unique clinic because it's open 5 days a week, and it has a whole core of volunteer, mostly retired physicians, nurses, and dentists. And these people provide their service on site and do all manner of things to help people who are without financial means but who are badly in need of help. And the dentists themselves, for example, come in there, they do evaluations, and they have the equipment there to do all sorts of minimum to minor procedures. They won't do, I don't think they'll give you a whole set of false teeth, but they'll come pretty close to that. And all of the other things that you can imagine these people in that clinic do, they are deserving of a great deal of credit. Now, there are other things. What else do we do to help people? Well, At the beginning of each school year, an organization led by Sue Strawn at Channel 3 and Sandy Stanting, the automobile dealer, put together what is known as Cram the Van. Now, this is caring, I think, at its utmost, because they recognize there are many children in this community, in this school district, whose parents at one time or another just cannot afford the necessary school supplies that the children need to begin a new term. And Cram the Van is an effort to gather community support, to provide such elements, and year after year they succeed in doing just exactly that. Ms. Strawn is available in a similar job right at Christmas time. More than 30 years ago, she began what is known as Communities Caring at Christmas. And it's a gathering together of funds to provide the elements of Christmas joy for the children of families of very small means. Now we say, well, that can't be very much. How many can you handle? Well, it is in an average year. And I guess any year, we can't say what is an average year, but nonetheless, it is not unusual for Communities Caring at Christmas to give assistance to as many as 10,000 children. And they've gathered together all of the elements of gift that have been given to them. They are dispensed at the fairgrounds, and it's a heartwarming scene to watch the work that Sue and her many people put together out there. The station personnel help as well, and plus a great many volunteers. So it's one of the things that helped us a lot. Now, as we move forward toward the second decade, into the second decade of the 21st century, we have to recognize that another thing that is becoming a major part of our community and caring and concern is the ability to continue education. And so we, from one place or another, the ability to fund scholarships is becoming more and more important. This is a part of the work, of course, of the University of West Florida, of Pensacola State College, all of the things that the people that work with them and the various foundations that support them. These are organizations that gather money and dispense funding for scholarship for those who need them. And we think of that being a small number perhaps, but literally the numbers now are in the hundreds every year. And of course, that is a wonderful thing for Pensacola. Well, what other things should we mention as far as care and compassion? Well, those who live in this area will never forget how people came together to help one another following Hurricane Ivan. Now, when people lost homes and they had so many difficulties, their businesses were interrupted, utilities were out, people came together as they might have done back in colonial times and helped overcome a major problem for individuals and families in an almost record time. And then just a year later, they did exactly the same thing when Hurricane Dennis came down upon us. And once again, our community showed that it didn't just take government to do it, it was people helping people at every step of the way. And the people like the United Way were also right involved with it, as were all of the agencies that they support. Well, coming to the end of our story of care and compassion, we look back on 190 years of how this has evolved a step at a time. Today, the United Way is gradually changing its name to Escambia United, trying to broaden the scale on which it works to cover special emphasis on housing, food, literacy, and poverty, trying to put a focus on the things that the United Way people see are the greatest ongoing problems we face. Now, we live here in the most affluent country in the world. We certainly are. We do not claim to be a terribly affluent county, but nonetheless, we certainly are not in what we would call a similar poverty belt to the Middle East. And yet, we always have an ongoing need of this or that or the other thing, and every year there seems to be a new one that we have to step forward and support. And my prediction is, yes, that's going to continue. We're going to find more things that people want to help with, are going to have more needs for which we need money. And unfortunately, every agency we talk about, every area of concern does involve financial support. So as you watch our show, our little story here, I hope that you will remember that. And as it is possible for you, remember that your help is important for care and compassion here.